continuing with examples, we've got that cosine theta is, so cosine theta is negative root 7 over 6, and we are told that we are in quadrant 2. So theta is between pi over 2 and pi. So we're in quadrant 2. That looks like an 11. We're in quadrant 2. And we want to find out the sine of 2 theta, cosine of 2 theta, sine of half of theta, and cosine of half of theta. So the first thing we need to do is build a triangle so that we know what we're doing. So in quadrant 2, my triangle looks like this. Coming off the origin, there's my theta. And then I know that theta is adjacent, so negative root 7 over hypotenuse. So I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem says x squared plus y squared is your hypotenuse squared. So negative root 7 squared plus y squared is h squared. So it's 36. So this becomes 7 plus y squared is 36. So y squared is 29, which means y is root 29. And we are in quadrant 2, so y is positive. And now we're going to go through and find these other things. So if I double any angle in quadrant 2, so it's going to go roughly from about 90, double that, and you'll get a little bit more than 180. Okay, if I double 180, or just shy of it, I'll be over here. So I'll be in quadrants 3 and 4 is where I'm going to end up landing. So that's for doubling angles. For halving angles, let's just talk about that. If I do half of just shy of 180, I'll be in quadrant 1 way up here. And if I do just half of a little bit more than 90, I'll be over here a little bit more than 45. So when I half these angles, I'll land in quadrant 1. So what is the cosine? Nope. What is the sine of 2 theta? So the sine of 2 theta is going to use 2 cosine theta, sine theta. So do I know what these are? Yes, I do. So that looks deceiving. All right, so what I have is the cosine of theta is negative root 7 over 6. So negative root 7 over 6. And the sine of theta is root 29 over 6. So my denominator is going to be 36, but I'm multiplying it by 2. And so I'm multiplying through by 2, which means it's going to reduce to 18. Okay, so that reduces by 3 and by 1, so I get an 18. So now what is 7 times 29? Who even knows at this point? It should be, I don't know. I have one less, so it should be like 213. 7 times 29 is 203. I was so close. All right, so I end up with a negative root 203 over 18. Okay, so let's try the cosine of 2 theta. And again, we get to choose which formula we want. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose, where did it go? I'm going to go ahead and choose this one because that'll keep me from having to get common denominators down here. So I'm going to use cosine squared alpha. So cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. So what is cosine? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I get negative root 7 over 6 squared minus sine is root 29 over hypotenuse. And so I end up with negative root 7 times negative root 7 is 7. Minus root 29 over times root 29 is 29. Over, this will be a 36 and this will be a 36. So I get 7 minus 29 is negative 22 over 36, which reduces by 2's. And so we will get negative 11 over 18. There you go. Okay, so give me a half angle. I need to know what the half angle of this is as far as, hang on, I'm looking, sine of theta over 2. So sine theta over 2, remember we just covered the fact that all of these are going to land us in quadrant 1. A half angle is going to land us in quadrant 1. So looking at our formulas, I know I'm going to take a positive root because I'm going to land in quadrant 1. So I've got 1 minus cosine theta over 2, which is going to be 1 minus the cosine is negative root 7 over 6 over 2, which becomes 1 plus. I need a common denominator on top, which is 6. So this is going to become 6 over 6. So 6 plus root 7 over 6. So 6 plus root 7 over 6, but all of that is over 2, which means my denominator is now 12. So if I'm going to take the square root of 12, that's going to be 4 times 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. So this ends up being, I pull out a 1/2 because my denominator is 12. And then I have 6 plus root 7 over 3. So again, if you square this, it's going to go in as a 4. 4 times 3 is your denominator of 12. All right, so let's do cosine theta over 2, which if you'll recall is the exact same thing, except for it is, instead of subtraction, it's addition. So I will have, did I do that wrong? Hang on, I'm looking. No, it's 1 minus the negative. Holy cow! All right, so 1 minus the negative. For your cosine of the half angle, you're going to have 1/2 of 6 minus root 7 over 3, just because of the sign changes. All right, so now that you can set those up, we're going to apply some of these things. So for instance, I want to find the sine of 15 degrees using a half angle formula. So I am going to figure out what this is the half angle of. So in order to do that, I double this and then divide by 2. So that's going to become the sine of 30 degrees over 2. So if you simplify that, you'll get 15. But now I have it in the format of a half angle. So I am going to apply this, and I'm going to remember that first of all, 15 degrees is in quadrant 1. Everything's positive in quadrant 1. And then my formula for a half angle on sine is going to be 1 minus cosine alpha, or cosine theta this time, whatever, over 2. So what is cosine at 30 degrees? Don't do 15, do 30, because that's what you're taking half of. So that's going to become 1 minus root 3 over 2 over 2. And so get your common denominator of 2. So this will be 2 minus root 3 over 2. So 2 minus root 3 over 2 over 2. And now you're going to multiply those together. So I get 2 minus root 3 over 4. Well, I know what the square root of 4 is. It's 2. So this is going to come out from underneath the radical. And I'm going to have root 2 minus root 3. So the square root of 2 minus root 3 all over 2. So make sure you take that out of the radical. Okay, so let's try another one. What about the tangent of negative pi over 12? So the tangent of negative pi over 12. First of all, remember that tangent is an odd function. So if I change this sign, meaning positive negative, I can change this sign, meaning positive negative. And then I don't have to deal with the stupid negative going on here. So what I have is a negative tangent of a positive pi over 12. And I want to find a half angle formula for that. Okay, so first of all, which quadrant are you in? I am now in quadrant 1, but I'm going to change the sign. Okay, so this said I would have dropped down into quadrant 4, where tangent would have been negative. Okay, so what did I take half of? Well, half of what is, all right, hang on, start over. My answer is 1 pi over 12. So what did I take half of? I took half of 2 pi's over 12. So I took half of 2 pi's over 12, which is pi over 6. Okay, I took half of 2 pi's over 12, which is pi over 6. So carry your negative along. And I get the tangent of pi over 6 over 2. So now you know what you are taking the half angle of. Okay, so what do? I'm going to look at tangent, and I got all these decisions to make. That one looks the scariest, so I'm going to choose either this one or this one. and I'm going to choose this one simply because when I'm looking at pi over 6, I know that sine is pretty and cosine is not pretty. So I'm going to use a sine that's pretty, in other words, with no radicals. Okay, so my formula that I'm going to use is a 1 minus cosine alpha over a sine alpha, or a sine theta. Okay, and so now I just look at this red thing and I fill in these two ratios. So my answer, do not forget your negative. So I've got a negative 1 minus cosine alpha. Well, what's the cosine of pi over 6? It is root 3 over 2. And what's the sine of pi over 6? It is 1/2. I need a common denominator here. So that's going to be negative 2 minus root 3, and then over 2 divided by 1/2. Which means I'm going to flip and multiply this thing. So that's going to turn into times 2 over 1, which means those 2's reduce, and I end up with a negative 2 plus root 3. Negative 2 plus root 3. All right, so let's try a couple more, and then I'll probably have to finish this up on a third video. So here is, use the half angle formulas to find the exact value of the expression of the cosine of 67.5. So I've got the cosine of 67.5. So what did I take half of? So I need to double it to find out what I took half of. So 67.5 times 2 is going to give us 135. So I'm going to rewrite this as the cosine of 135 over 2, which means this is my alpha, theta, beta, whatever you want it to be. All right, so if I'm doing a half angle formula for cosine, okay, I need to use this formula, but again, I need to know if I'm in positive or negative world. So where's 67.5? It's in quadrant 1. So my answer is going to be positive. So I've got the square root of 1 plus cosine theta over 2, and he'll be a positive answer. So now I've got 1 plus, what's the cosine of 135? The cosine of 135 is a negative root 2 over 2 over 2. So that becomes 1 minus root 2 over 2. So I'm going to go ahead and get a common denominator here of 2 over 2. So that gives me 2 minus root 2 over 2 over 2. So I got a common denominator, and now I can multiply those. So I get 2 minus root 2 over 4, but that over 4 is underneath the radical, so I'm going to go ahead and take a square root and give it over 2. All right, so that is your exact answer. So let's do one more, and then we'll do a second or a third video. Okay. So I've got the cosecant of 9 pi over 8. So first of all, I don't have an angle formula for cosecant, but remember that cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So whatever I find, I'm going to put under 1. Okay. So first of all, I need to know what this is half of. Well, 9 pi's over 8 must be half of 18 pi's over 8. So I'm going to rewrite this, and then 18 pi's over 8 reduces by 4's. No, it does not. It reduces by 2's to 9 pi over 4. So I get 9 pi over 4. Okay, so I've got the cosecant of 9 pi over 4 over 2. So this is my theta, but now I'm outside of a lap of the unit circle. So recognizing that this, going from here to here, is 8 pi's, you can't see, going from here to here is 8 pi's over 4. This is coterminal with pi over 4. So 9 pi's over 4 is coterminal with pi over 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write this thing as pi over 4. So I've got the cosecant of pi over 4 over 2. So now this is the angle measure I'm really excited about, because that one took me into a second lap of the unit circle. So again, I don't have a formula for this thing, but what I do know is cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So I'm going to do 1 over and then apply my sine formula. So the sine for a half angle, since I am in quadrant 4, sine is I'm in quadrant 1. Sine is positive in quadrant 1. Okay, so my answer is going to be positive, and I'm going to do the square root of 1 minus the cosine of that angle over 2. Okay, so this is going to get a little bit exciting. So what is the cosine of pi over 4? It is root 2 over 2. So I've got 1 over the square root of 1 minus root 2 over 2 over 2. Okay, so I need a common denominator. And when I get that common denominator, I am going to change this into a 1 over, and then I'll have 2 minus root 2 all over 2 again. Okay, over 2 again. So looking at that, what do I do now? I can combine these two things, and that's going to give me a 4. So what I have at this point is 1 over the square root of 2 minus root 2 over 2. Okay, because the square root of 4 is 2. And now I can flip this whole thing and be done. So when I flip it, I get 2 over 2 minus root 2. And that is going to be my answer for that one. So we will pick this up hopefully in one final video, probably 2.